How are we coming here? इसका माइक और कैमरा तो माइक को खोलना पड़ेगा ना, इसकी आवाज आवाज की क्लैरिटी के साथ कैप्चर हो जाएगी सर। मेरे क्लासेस चल रही है सर, क्लासेस 11
Hello, mic testing. Hello. Hello, mic testing. Hello. Hello, mic testing. Hello. Are you? Hello.
Not the first two.
Settle down. Settle down, all of you. Students. Please rise to greet the. Please, all of you, rise. May we clap for our guests. Kindly greet our guests. We all take our seats.
Please,
morning, everyone. I welcome you all to this ceremony of MOU signing between New Delhi Institute of Management and Global Counter-Terrorism Council, followed by a panel discussion on the security environment. It's my pleasure to introduce NDIM and GST to our esteemed guests today. New Delhi Institute of Management was set up in 1992. It has been declared Best Management Institute for Industry Linkages 3 years in a row by the AICTE and CII after their nationwide year-long survey of all the 10,000 plus technical and higher education AICTE approved institutions across India under 19 parameters. NDIM has been declared best also by SOCHAM in 2017, 18, 19, 20, and 2021 for placements and for being best in North India and for finest. NDIM was declared best also by FICCI for excellence in employability through industry engagement on 25th February 2021. And having been declared best in India continuously for 3 years, NDIM has been elevated and declared as the first and the only mentor institute of India in the management category by AIC. Global Counter-Terrorism Council is a registered non-profit international think tank initiated by public-spirited individuals to awaken further issues of national interest and global conscience about terrorism as a threat to humanity, human security, etc. Members belonging to different faculties and backgrounds like senior bureaucrats, academicians, officers from the armed forces and paramilitary services, distinguished diplomats, leading researchers, media analysts, parliamentarians, professionals, corporate heads, human rights groups provide support and regularly contribute with the aim to deliberate on the root cause of global terrorism and to present effective solutions to the problems faced by society and the government. It's my honor and privilege to welcome our distinguished guest, Dr. Shekhar Dutt, patron GCTC, former Government Secretary and former Defense Secretary and Deputy National Security Advisor, Government of India. Professor Sudhir Supoi, Executive Council Member GCTC and former Vice Chancellor, Jawaharlal Nehru University. Lieutenant General Satish Dua, Executive Council Member GCTC and former CISC and former GOC Supreme Court. Karnal Singh, Executive Council Member GCTC and former Chief Enforcement Directorate and Director Financial Intelligence Unit. Ambassador Suresh Goyal, Advisor Council Member GCTC and former Secretary, Minister of External Affairs and Director General of the Indian Council of Cultural Relations. Rear Admiral Dr. Sanatan Kulshresh, Executive Council Member GCTC and former DG Naval Armament Inspection. Ms. Neeru Abrol, Executive Council Member GCTC and former Chairman and Managing Director National Fertilizer and Chemicals. Mr. Ashok Khurana, Advisory Board Member GCTC and former DG CPW. Mr. Vijay Dixit, Core Committee Member GCTC and former Engineer-in-Chief Ministry of Power. Colonel Shailendra Singh, Member GCTC and former Army Officer. All our guests. To formally begin the day's proceedings, may I invite Dr. V.M. Bansal, Chairman ND, and to deliver the welcome address. Dr. Bansal is a former distinguished professor, was the youngest and the longest serving Secretary of DBA for 17 years and was advisor to the Lieutenant Governor of Delhi. He was directly dealing one-to-one with the Prime Minister's office, with the Union Ministers, and with every Chief Minister. In the field of education, he's brought several big reforms and has been taken by the Government of India on several of its important committees. He heads the board with several Padma Shris, Padma Bhushan, and Padma Bhushan, and 7 former secretaries of government.
Friends, before I very warmly welcome and thank the distinguished guests, I would just like to speak to students. It's a great day for each one of you, and it's a great day for me and the entire faculty. This college was set up by a freedom fighter who was several times behind the jail bars in the freedom struggle. And that continues to be part of our ethos at this college, because most of students and even some of the faculty are meeting for the first time one-to-one because of the COVID situation. And since I too was schooled at a Sainik school, it was Sainik school in Rewa, Madhya Pradesh. So our family and our culture is very strongly connected, very deeply rooted into nationalistic spirit. And that is what this College of India is known for, being different from other management schools. That's part of our culture when you study here. And Aditya Tikku, who is the convener and founder of this GCTC, that's Global Council, Counter-Terrorism Council, Global Counter-Terrorism Council. So I suggested to Aditya about 3 years back, we had said at that time with General Bhu also, that they are doing a very great and very distinguished role, which I must say perhaps nobody else is doing in this country or in this part of the world. But I suggested to him that his role and his job will be incomplete if this feeling and this thinking is not taken to the education institutions. So I'm happy that the GCTC has taken a decision to have an MOU with you people, and purpose is again that you become more serious, more concerned, more connected with the national cause. And that is what is going to be a big help to you in your careers, let me tell you. Because once you have that feeling, you will be a distinguished and different and be altogether from other institutions. Global economy, global management, everything is now very deeply and very instantly connected to safety and security of the nation's national borders and even your, say, entire infrastructure. You have seen it. This has never happened before. Even yesterday when I was taking a meeting with my international business faculty, so I was only insisting that now, because of the social media, because of all of the trends, within seconds, your economy can go up or down. Those times have gone that a sneeze from USA will take a couple of days to transfer or to reach India and affect you. Now it will happen and it will affect you instantly. So that was the basic purpose we thought that we must come here and try to add one more kind of a feature in the learning of our MBA graduate. That's number one. And for that, I very warmly, very sincerely thank the patron and all the executive members. Thank all the advisory council members and Mr. Aditya personally. But I like to now remind Aditya that I'm too a part of the GCTC which he has not mentioned. Okay. Yeah. We were sitting together 7 years back. So since then we have been working closely together. But he perhaps thought that I'm on the other side of the stream. So I thought I'll remind him. Okay. No, sir, not at all. Nothing part of it. Yeah. Thank you so very much. And again, now a couple of things I'll request to the GCTC because the entire top brass of the GCTC is present over here. This MOU should just be the beginning. This MOU should just be our starting of the thinking in a new direction. Because we are always very keen. All of you are aware, Colonel Bansal is director of the ICT, he's aware that we do not get into signing of the MOUs with so many other people that we're doing. We are very serious about the MOU that we signed and we try to put the content of the MOUs into place very rigorously. And secondly, we do not confine ourselves to the content written in the MOU. We want to go beyond and much, much beyond what is intended or what could be written in the MOU. And so my couple of suggestions over here would be, because I am aware of the kind of work GCTC is doing. That is why I'm taking the liberty of making those suggestions. Otherwise, I wouldn't have done. Because you people are the role models. And you need to be number one. Possibly, we can be your center in Delhi because you start a very large infrastructure. And one more thing you would see, that our faculty and staff, this kind of a commitment you will not find anywhere at any campus in the country. Okay, yeah. Because Colonel Bansal knows from the AICT, whenever AICT also wants to partner with any institution, they call me that whether you're willing to do it. And they call me at 12 o'clock in the night, and we are ready at 6 o'clock in the morning. So the entire credit goes to the great team that we have here. Even in this case, Aditya confirmed to me this whole thing on the Saturday evening. Okay. We have been requesting him for 2 weeks. I had sent him minute-to-minute program, but he confirmed to me Sunday evening. We were hosting maybe 150 very senior officers of the government of India here on Sunday. So I got free around 6 o'clock. Then only I saw his messages. So our team worked again in addition to all the teaching, all of the commitments. So it's a pleasure to have you all. And another friend who's come, Mr. Pradeep, he too is very seriously. Pradeep is coming the first row, please. So Pradeep is also into the same league, into the same activity. And I was suggesting to Pradeep the other day that possibly he should also join the GCTC because he's doing the same role independently. He has been a very distinguished bureaucrat in the Ministry of Home Affairs. He voluntarily sought retirement a couple of years back only to do what you people are doing. Okay. So coming back, so you may kindly think of either some regular guest sessions or lectures for the entire country. Because whenever we do our webinars, we send invites to the academia across the country. Being a mentor institution of the country, we have taken that role very seriously as to how to take the learning across the country without any charges at our only cost. And number two, you could think of 2-hour, 4-hour, 6-hour modules. Because since I'm privy to what you people do every day, so those modules need to be taken to the whole country. Thirdly, also think of internships and projects because the areas that you're covering are so big and so gigantic. Students at young age need to be associated with that. So you could associate them for those things. They will act as your big support. Right now, you have a very small team to help you. It is all of you are doing 24/7 work. If you associate them, you will get extra arms, and they would be the future team leaders for you. And I also feel that the field that you people are taking, once we expand it, expansion is necessary. Once we expand it, very large number of job roles are also available in this field, which the management students are not currently aware of. So we would like to be a center for that too. So we'll be too very happy to take all these initiatives forward so that this MOU does not stay in paper. We really help the cause of the nation. We really help the cause of the next generation of the country. And we make them all as GCTC flag bearers. Thank you very much. Very grateful.
Thank you, sir. May I now request Mayor Executive Dr. Sanatan Kushri, Executive Council, former DG Naval Armament Inspection, to deliver the welcome address from GCTC.
Namaskar. After such an exhilarating talk by Mr. Bansal, I am all fired up. Sir, we at GCTC will take on whatever you give us. And it will be our endeavor to abide by your guidelines. Thank you so much, sir. On behalf of GCTC, I welcome the distinguished guests and friends for today's program of the signing of the MOU with NDIM, as well as panel discussion on can new businesses fire India's global ambition under the prevailing security environment. I extend my heartiest congratulations to all of you on this momentous occasion. As you all know, the mission of the Global Counter-Terrorism Council is to shape intellectual discourse and dialogue and impact public policy uniquely. The GCTC translates the think tank into action through head, heart, and feet strategy. The head being research, data gathering, polling, and academic partnerships. The heart being civic education, training, and development, and the feet being on the ground organizing issue-based campaigns, webinars, and seminars. During the past, GCTC has conducted numerous programs, conferences, seminars, webinars, and brought together the best of minds to ideate on critical national and international issues that further the cause of peace and global harmony. The efforts made by GCTC have received overwhelming support from the government, think tanks, academicians, armed forces, media, and several other bodies working towards countering terrorism and global peace. The signing of MOU between GCTC and NDIM would synergize both the organizations and help achieve many more milestones to go. I want to encapsulate the prevailing global security environment under 4 heads. Firstly, the Russia-Ukraine war, or the Rusuk war, if I may be allowed to caption it as such. It is a fight for honor for Russia. This war sets up a multipolar world and is already sending economic ripples globally. The impacted sectors include fuel, food, edible oil, auto, energy, transport, and supply chain sectors. I am sure learned scholars would enlighten us more about the challenges and opportunities during the panel discussion. The US has been supporting Ukraine in several ways without direct intervention through economic sanctions, possible cyber attacks against Russian infrastructure, the transfer of weapons to Ukraine, and the sharing of real-time intelligence with the Ukrainian forces. This war has managed to interlink and initiate a rethink about festering global flashpoints like Taiwan, Iran, and India's border issues with China. The last 2 years have seen severe global concerns about the takeover of Taiwan by China because of the rapid technological advances by China in equipping its forces in large numbers. This has led to the realization that a miscalculated counter to China by the West could very well escalate into a full-fledged war. The Rusuk war will make China recalibrate its taking over of Taiwan militarily. The takeover of Taiwan would be far more complex, involving air, naval, and ground forces, not to talk of complex amphibious operations, mountain ops, and urban warfare. The likely response of the US and the other nations in South China Sea would be far more aggressive than what it is in respect of Ukraine. The military and economic sanctions against Iran have not resulted in expected outcomes. Under the terms of the 2015 Iran nuclear deal, Iran is permitted to stockpile only 300 kg of uranium enriched to 3.67% purity. Since the US withdrew from the agreement under Trump, Iran has stockpiled at least 10 times that amount, including uranium enriched to 20 or up to 60% purity. Those levels of enrichment are close to what is needed for weapons-grade uranium. Negotiations have thus far failed to restore the status quo. Russia plays a vital role in guaranteeing the nuclear deal implementation. Moscow imports excess enriched uranium from Iran and helps downgrade Iranian enrichment facilities, ensuring they can't be used to engage in nuclear weapons manufacture. But in recent days, Russia has put Ukraine at the center of Iran talks, insisting that its trade with Tehran be exempt from destructive Western sanctions imposed on Moscow. If Russia decides to halt cooperation, the other vital signatories of the 2015 Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, China, France, Germany, Iran, the EU, the United Kingdom, and the United States would have to find another country to take Russia's place. This process would substantially delay any final agreement. If a final agreement upon Iran's nuclear deal is not reached, it could escalate the Middle East crisis. Despite several rounds of talks between military commanders from both sides, China continues to amass troops and military hardware along the LAC. It is indicative of a more exhaustive but short military campaign China might want to wage in future. India has to replan its robust counter, knowing that the conflict may not elicit an expected response from the US or the EU. The only imperative for India is self-reliance across all sectors impacting its sovereignty. A word about cyber attacks that are currently raging across the businesses with direct or indirect links to Russian-Ukrainian critical infrastructure and banks. These companies need to examine the aspects such as attack on their IT systems, how will they track inventory, manage accounts, or communicate with offices and plants. Aramco attack on 2021 laid their 30,000 PCs out of control in a blink of an eyelid. Businesses should closely examine the supply chains. Firms may risk hidden dependence upon Ukrainian-based software engineers, code writers, or hosted services. Ukraine's Ministry of Foreign Affairs reports that more than 100 of the world's Fortune 500 companies rely at least partially on Ukrainian IT services, with several Ukrainian IT firms being among the top 100 outsourcing options for IT services globally. Firms should share anomalous or malicious cyber activity with government and local partners to help build a collective defense. Firms must recognize cybersecurity as closely connected to overall business security and risk. Teams looking at cybersecurity, geopolitical risk, and physical security should work together and not in isolation. It may be wise for businesses to rework contingency plans to ensure they are correct, realistic, and fit for the purpose. With this, gentlemen, I have finished, and I once again welcome each one of you to today's event and wish that both the NDIM and GCTC would synergize in times to come. Thank you, and Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir. May I now request Dr. Shekhar Das, patron GCTC National Security Advisor, Government of India for the keynote address. Dr. Dutt has been the Governor of Chhattisgarh for 4.5 years, Chancellor of 11 state universities, and visitor of 6 private universities. Dr. Dutt has also served as the Deputy National Security Advisor, where he addressed the issues concerning strategic defense and national security. He's also served as the Defense Secretary, Government of India, wherein he was instrumental in transforming the procurement policies and modernizing the production of military, land, sea, and air systems. He has also held numerous prestigious positions in the Government of India. He was awarded the Sena Medal for Gallantry in 1971 in France.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I also thank Dr. Bansal for inviting us and make suggestion of and agreeing to this partnership between GCTC and your esteemed organization, India. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, all the faculty members. Good morning, students. It's a pleasure to be here. And what best can this position be after Admiral Kulshrestha's introduction of the global scenario? First class, absolutely. With a hallmark of an Indian Armed Forces officer, be able to encapsulate everything in a short space of time and subjects. So I think it is an enormous amount of challenge. So I would say that the challenges which beset India is enormous. And we have to, in a short span of time, meet those challenges and come out better. What do we have to do? We have to become, as all of us want, a global power. It's not just global ability to dominate countries with military powers, but also global power. It's be able to say we have to become a permanent member of the Security Council. We have to be able to influence the world in its thought processes and action in the next decade. So we have a challenge. And every one of the students of such an organization is a core which is being prepared to meet those challenges. The faculty, when I talked with some of them, the finest people and a person like Dr. Bansal, who has been shaping even the faculty, has really saw the establishment of something which will enable India to do that. And I'm sure that the GCTC, with its vibrant and varied experienced people, each one of them would be able to be a resource for the NDIM. So don't hesitate in making use of this resource. One thing which I always say, that the spheres of influence, the influence is in the form of a sphere. It's not whatever you learn, whatever you do, whatever positions you are in, is enabling you to develop your own personality or your organization in the x-axis or y-axis or even z-axis, if there is any. It is, I would say that the main instrument of being able to influence the world is a growth like a sphere. So every time you learn something, every time, even after this meeting, when the students go, they would have learned something, so their domination of the knowledge should increase, and that's in the form of a sphere. And that is why we call sphere of influence. I mean, if you see many countries, some of them might be very small, but their sphere of influence is huge. And therefore, people do follow whatever is happening there. And it is necessary. Now, Global Security Council enables people to understand this entire globality of this. We're not talking about a particular type of a security challenge. I mean, there could be many such. Say, for example, we are sitting here, we want unabated power supply, because otherwise I won't be able to be heard at the last row. So we require power. And this cannot happen unless until you have energy security. One of the things which is a sign of, which should make us ashamed, is right over here. In fact, I've got that here, that we drink pure water from bottles. They are not able to open a tap and provide that water. But I'm sure that many people who are working in this establishment would be drinking the tap water because they can't afford to drink this pure water. So that's the thing. We have to have as pure water in our taps as it is available to us on our Bisleri or whatever. We have to have, therefore, water security. Water security doesn't mean that we have to have water for plants and water. Water has to be available in its purest form. So we have to see that rivers, our sources of water are pure. Like that, we have to have other forms of security. Knowledge security. Every time when something is to be learned, it should not be that some Western country sort of gives. I don't know. I mean, you following, of course, the Ukrainian thing, and therefore you must be knowing that in 1991, when Soviet Union collapsed, 3 countries came out of the Soviet Union: Estonia, Lithuania, and Latvia. Now, everybody works on Skype. And we know that Skype was founded by 2 young enterprising persons of Estonia. And when they founded and made Skype useful to everybody, including me, if I want to use talk to my son or something, I would use the Spike and I get a very good connectivity. These boys, these young people of Estonia moved forward and they made Skype useful for many other things. So in fact, they make tubes so that like what you have, chaat ka dukan, you can have a dukan where you can sit down and be connected with anybody that you want to. Now the connectivity, to be able to say what you want, to be able to understand what the other person is saying, to be able to communicate and with eye contact is possible. So that's what these people did. Now, what are those people? They are the innovators. So that is what everyone who's studying is. There's a potential to be an innovator. And when we are innovating, we are seeing the challenges which are there in front of us. We are able to understand the challenges which will follow us. If we do something, that itself will enable some other challenge to come. And how do we take on that challenge? While coming to this place, I was just talking with the driver. And the driver, I said, "बहुत ज़्यादा traffic है सर." Traffic तो ज़्यादा नहीं है, लेकिन रोड उतना ही चौड़ा है. तो उस कम traffic में भी धीरे हो जाता. So then I told him what I've seen in Japan or I've seen in Chile. Chile is not world beater something very developed country, but Chile did it. And there is a distance of from the airport to main center of Chile, of Santiago. And what they did was, they also had similar kind of a thing like Nairobi, but what they did was that they made an underground pass. And that underground pass is right from the airport to the city center, 70 kilometers. And anybody who takes that road will not have any crossing. But if you want to cross, you go into an exit or entry and you come into another lane. That's it. It can be done. Delhi Metro has shown that without stopping the traffic, the Delhi Metro, Sridharan is one of the country's best managers, and he made that possible. And one of my friends, Satish Kumar, who was the technical director of that Delhi Metro, he said not only did he do that, he also cleaned Delhi, because every time a truck which used to take the debris out would ensure that it moved through water, so the road would get cleaned. Now we have these kind of storybooks. So if we can make metro we can make underground stations. Now, Japan, everybody goes to Japan. Now, what Japan has done, there's layers of road. And there are places where even making a exit or entry is difficult. So you come to that place and take the car on one side. There's a lift. Admiral Kusresh would know. In naval shipyards, this kind of use is made of the lifts. So you take the block out. You can take the block out. You can take the car out or a truck out. Lift it to the level of where you want, and there is another road. It's called elevated. So in a short space, we can have maximum transportation. That is what we should do. So if I start giving on these kind of lists, which are already there in some of the other countries, Japan has one railway line, and under that there's another railway line, then there's another railway line. That way there are 7 or 8 railway lines and over and above and under. So with less land space, you can do this elevated movement. So I was suggesting the Honorable Vice Chancellor that all these different branches of engineering or management, with a bit of an effort, hybrid education, so that every person who's taking part in these subjects becomes a more well-rounded person and then shape India's tomorrow. Global Counter-Terrorism Council has been doing gradually the same thing. Started with counter-terrorism or terrorism in Kashmir. Then we realized that it is not influenced by people just within the country. It is also influenced by people who are from outside the country. So you start talking about global. Then you start seeing many other things, including cybersecurity, many other challenges. And we would be very, I would say, foolish if we don't go deeper into the other forms of terrorism. We have to understand the potential of different kind of terrorism and what it affects. I mean, cyber terrorism is not just for enabling a military victory, but it can also bring financial activities to a grind completely. And we are heading towards that if we don't understand. And every time, say, Reserve Bank of India keeps on saying, don't give your OTPs and many other things. You have to be disciplined persons if you use computers and if you use the internet. So with every bit of knowledge, your area of responsibility also increases. And if you don't do that, then again, I mean, I never have been able to communicate to God. But I'm sure that only God will help us. Because there is enormous amount of areas where we have created vulnerabilities. We have to know this vulnerability. I'm not saying that we ought to be afraid of doing any damn thing. I mean, as a former Fauji, and Fauji in heart, you can say, we have to take on challenges, but we have to be aware of the vulnerabilities that we create, and we have to then plan for reduction of those vulnerabilities. We are not just young boys and girls of a country. We are that of India, Bharatvarsh. And now, I mean, just now, what Admiral Kusresh said, that there is a challenge that many things may not be available. And so what do we have to do? We have to be more self-reliant. Self-reliance cannot be by sort of repeating what has been done. But self-reliance will have to be from finding new things which nobody can visualize. And that is what we should be able to export. So we can become strong in one field and export something, and thereby we can exchange a lot of things. In fact, one of India's very established scientists, Dr. C.N.R. Rao, has said that at that time there were certain things on which India was very powerful. He said, if we want to dominate, it is not by becoming powerful in everything, but we have to take certain areas and become powerful. Now we have got enormous amount of software capability, but software capability in itself will not give us the strength. Software capability in designing the hardware will be important, so that then we can use this designed hardware into what exchangeable or exportable commodity. That is what we should do. Electronics is a very, very important sector, but we have to design the control systems of the electronics so that we can take care of the cyber element and all the bugs that is. Now we don't have, in India, we don't have sizable production of semiconductors. This is a huge vulnerability. All our, mobile, everything, electrical controls, traffic controls, in the civil aviation, everything is designed in a chip. And then you put chips over chips over chips, and you make ASICs. And that is it. It's a control system. If we don't make, I cannot sort of put, say, fault in my counterpart in China. So if I am my counterpart in China, let us say in China, I would have put a bug in this. But that bug is there. And it can be activated with satellite. So we are living with these kind of things which are present. So we have to have our ability to manufacture chips. Now you'll say that all right, defense has its own small manufacture in Bangalore for electronic items, for the missile systems in Hyderabad. So that way is all right. We are safe. But what about financial institutions? What about transport? What about civil aviation? What about many other things on which the control systems are dependent on chips? So we have to make. Now government has brought in a number of PLI, which will encourage people to go in for that. Many people would say कि हमें इतनी जरूरत नहीं है. एक तो एक अपने जेब में ही हम चिप भर के ले आ सकते हैं. I don't require. So my work is this thing, power generation. I don't require. Why should I need? So what I am saying is that time has come when we should think of organizations development by making joint effort. So 10 organizations become, they put all in their effort, and therefore we have the mass, and therefore we make. So these kind of methods should be good. We talk in silos. We got some of the best capable organizations like NASA and Pluto and some of the other organizations. But that time has come when all these partner each other in certain things, and therefore we can use the bulk production, which will make things cheaper, which will also enable marketing of this thing outside. The moment we are able to manufacture the chips that we want, the size of the chip, the kind of all those things, then we can distribute them to the users of the chips. But we have to do it. Now, similarly, we have to also enable all our say production, whatever we have done, to be able to upgrade it without destroying the thing. So some of these things, I just give an example, and this example will show you something what big rich fellows are doing. You must have heard of F-16, the standard American fighter. The F-16 is older than, the design of F-16 is older than all the students. Maybe it is older than some of the faculty members, because the design is 1960s. It is going on since then. But every time a new challenge comes, F-16 is being upgraded. So there are so many type of upgradations, including upgradation of the engines and upgradation of the fire systems and upgradation of the navigation system, everything. America is a very rich country. America is very, 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 very strong country in marketing, but yet what they've done is they made a platform which can be upgraded, and everything, every challenge is taken care of. So that is the thing. The rich know the value of the money. The poor don't. And this is what in fact, I was studying economics. One of the things, I forget the name of the person, he wrote, "Why poor people stay poor?" And he says it is urban bias. So a country after country wants to become urban, and they forget about the rural areas, and therefore they try to become rich, but they become poorer instead. Because India is very, very, उसमें सरताज है कि we want to have an urban bias. गांव का आदमी वो गंवार है, शहरी आदमी वो बचा हुआ है, So we think that. So I say why poor stays poor is because they don't know the value of money. Money is also time. So we take more time in doing everything. So if we know the value of money, so time management, time and continuously upgradations and all that, and therefore we will have the money, the rupee will go to a greater distance. So there are many other things which enable a wholesome development of a student, and we would assure you from the GCTC and every member that you have, they are people who have excelled in their part of the world. So one NDIM, one GCTC is not 2, 11. Yeah. So thank you very much. And wish you all the very best.
Thank you so much, sir, for your words of wisdom. Before we begin with the emotional signing, may I request Professor Sudhir Sukori, Executive Council member, and former Vice Chancellor GNU, to brief the gathering about the importance of GNU. Dr. Sudhir is an Indian educationist, plant physiologist, scientist, and former Vice Chancellor of Jawaharlal University. He is also purify a protein scientific activity from plants and is credited with the identification of topoisomerase as a substrate of protein kinase.
The Wikipedia description of the question. I put everything in there, and it's such a great pleasure for me to visit this institute. I've met some of your faculty members, a lot of students around here, and I'm sure the place where there are energetic students, this institution must be bubbling with new thoughts. They must be doing very well. So it would be a pleasure for me to sign MOU on behalf of GCTC. And I was at JNU and when I joined, it was in their pamphlet written that we have almost 163 MOUs already signed. And I said, I want to look at the file. What are these MOUs? And I think almost 70% of them said, and nothing was happening. It signed, photograph was taken, and put in the file, and presentation to the Executive Council or to the court of the JNU. As you rightly said, when you sign an MOU, it has to come from your mind, your heart, that you want to give each other some benefit of what you are writing on letter. Complementarity is which brings you the two institutions together towards a certain cause. So that's what probably these MOUs would be able to do that. Being a scientist, I remember that there's a bigger journal called Nature, and top somewhere around 70s or 80s, they write the era of lone author is over. You cannot do science or many other activities except by being a sadhu. That you can do puja independent, or you can write a book independent. But the kind of challenges which he was mentioning about, it's very difficult to take up those challenges. And therefore, it is very important, as he's mentioned, that you have to break those silos. That's what I tried to do it in JNU. We created transdisciplinary discourse, the virtual course. Let social scientists mix with the scientists. As international people mix with other groups, environment. So I used to organize lectures from social science people into science schools, and our science school teachers to go to the social science and give lectures. And that was bringing new ideas together. And we started funding research wherever 2 or 3 people will get together, only that research will get funded from their money and not otherwise. Otherwise, you keep on doing it. So the problem is that kind of challenges which we have in terms of terrorism, in terms of bringing peace into the world, and many other challenges. These have to be, they're very complex problems. It cannot be solved at individual level. You need bigger knowledge base. You need very experienced people to give solutions to these things. And finally, to bring those solutions into the practice, you need a totally different set of people. So that's what, whereas an plant scientist, agriculture scientists, they say from field to the table. So that is a totally different challenge which we face from one end to the other. So in order to find end-to-end solutions, 2 challenging problems, we need to get them. And the purpose of these MOUs, I always do this, bring different knowledge domains for a specific issue and find solutions to that. I'm so happy that GCTC and their institution is here. Together, we bring knowledge, experience from GCTC, and we bring the active workers, and I'm sure some positive things will emerge out of this.
May I request Dr. V.M. Bansal, Mr. Aditya, to please join the MOU signing on stage.
Dr. Gauri, please come on the stage.
We now begin with the panel discussion. Can new business inspire India's global ambition under the prevailing security environment? May I request the panelists, Ms. Neelu Abroad, Ambassador Suresh Goyal, Lieutenant General Sir Satish Kumar, Dr. Karnal Singh, Mr. Ashok Khurana to take their seats on the stage, along with Dr. B.M. Bansal. The session will be chaired by Ms. Neelu Abroad, Executive Council Member GCTC, and former Chairman and Managing Director National Fertilizer Group. She is a chartered accountant by profession and now is Independent Director on a number of corporate groups. We have Ambassador Suresh Goyal, Advisor Council Member GCTC, and former Secretary, Ministry of External Affairs and Director General of the Indian Council of Cultural Relations. Lieutenant General Satish Dua, Executive Council Member GCTC, and former CISP and former COT 15. Dr. Karnal Singh, Executive Council Member GCTC, and former Chief Enforcement Directorate and Director of Financial Intelligence. Mr. Ashok Khurana, Advisory Board Member Gctc and former Director General CPW. May I now request Kiru Abroad to please chair the panel discussion.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Respected Professor V.M. Bansal, Chairman NDIM, Dr. Shekhar Dutt, distinguished guests on and off the dais, faculty members, dear students, persons from NDIM and Gctc, ladies and gentlemen. It's me immense pleasure to be chairing this session. Can new businesses fire India's global ambition under the prevailing security environment? We have a galaxy of speakers. One by one, we'll be doing it. And we have about 1 hour's time. Okay. And questions that the students have, you would like to have after each session, after each speaker, or at the end? Last? Okay. So we have half an hour and we have about 5 speakers. I will set the ball rolling. Actually, Dr. Kurushestra just now, he gave you about the security scenario arising after the Ukrainian and Russian war. I'll be going a little away, and other speakers will be concentrating on the different aspects of security. PM Mr. Narendra Modi in 2019 envisioned making India US $5 trillion economy and a global powerhouse by 2024-25. The largest in the world behind USA and China, from the present 5th overtaking Japan and Germany. USA is top at about 22.2 trillion US dollars. China is 15.47. Japan is 5.5. Germany is about 4.16. And India is 3.26 as per the IMF study report of 2019. So 2024-25 has been pushed to 2026-27 as per the last budget speech of the new economic advisor. But even to achieve it by 2030, the momentum has to be accelerated, especially in infrastructure and manufacturing, the 2 pillars of growth. India's service sector accounts for about 60% and 20% of employment. You'll find that in manufacturing, China is even ahead of USA. So we have to catch up quite a bit. Since 2020, the global environment towards security has changed its orientation, into which we have seen rapid strides under the area of digital technology, with reference to such a thematic view that we have witnessed the era of digital revolution. India is no exception, and therefore it becomes a compelling need for the businesses to thrive within such competing environments. Due to nationwide lockdowns and social distancing protocols, Indian markets were forced to adopt and even emphasize on India's thrust towards digital India that goes back to 2016. While the world was recovering from the gruesome pandemic, the wheels of the business economy were growing with much support of India's digital push. We saw growth in digital sectors of healthcare, education, government services, and even manufacturing. But concerns were also raised in the security framework, which such new growth were to develop. India's new businesses in the sectors like artificial intelligence, big data, and cloud computing have huge potential to revolutionize the economy, but with security concerns. The outcomes of such digital push needs to be carefully looked into. Moreover, the world is witnessing tendencies of protectionism, isolationism, sanctions, border trade protections, and other hampering elements that have made the international community to relook at the way businesses perform. With reference to such a geopolitical environment, Indian businesses have got an opportunity to take into consideration the factors of security, safety, and integrity. India is also a significant economy when it comes to small and medium-sized business enterprises. Around 6 crores small and business enterprises work as a backbone to the Indian economy. Some experts say that SMBs are more vulnerable to security threats as compared to bigger ones, as SMBs lack the resources to tackle them. It is an opportune time for India to enable an environment for such businesses to operate in a secured manner. It is imperative for India to also rework its strategy towards tackling the issue of R&D. India shares a very low figure of only 0.7% of its GDP, which makes innovation and related technology pride a distant dream. To tackle the same, India needs to explore an amalgamation of private and public sectors to give impetus to its aim of 5 trillion economy. It is also worthy to note that India has one of the largest startup ecosystems in the world. With the help of schemes such as Startup India and the latest taxation rebates afforded to new businesses, the issue at its face remains that of a broader based diversification of its export basket. At the moment, the startup industry has a very narrow product base, mostly healthcare, education, fintech, and the like. But greater thrust is required to be pushed into the manufacturing base and bringing in a cohesiveness with a larger global business environment. Take, for example, in the case of diversifying its defense production, India remains the second largest arms importer of the world, the impact of which has been seen in changing relationships with the countries of the West and her neighbors such as China, which has the capacity to throw its weight around in the regional geopolitics of South Asia since it emerged as in rising arms, exported to such countries as Pakistan. In lieu of same, the Ministry of Defense launched the Innovation for Defense Ecosystems in 2018 as an ecosystem to foster innovation and technological development by providing funding and grants to MSMEs, startups, R&D institutes, and academic institutions. Additionally, it may also be pertinent to mention that India is currently at the realm of realizing the potential of its demographic dividend. The right kind of intervention at this stage can play a role in revolutionizing India's growth story. So I will now pass on the baton. I will request Ambassador Suresh Goyal. We are an expert in Chinese, let's say the ecosystem long ago, what type of challenges you find and how we can cover.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I must admire the way the ball has been set rolling, initially by the address by Admiral Khurana and Kushresha. I'm sorry, my apologies. Kushresha, I was just talking to him. I think I'm going to Secretary, former Secretary Officer Shekhar, and then Dr. V.M. Bansal, the chairman of NDIA. And I must actually greet Aditya Tipu. I really wonder where he gets all this energy from. I suddenly get a call one day before or a couple of hours before, and he says, "You can do it, do it." And I mean, this kind of a thing is very rare. I wish our government was like this. Probably all our problems would be over. Thank you very much, Aditya. I'm really impressed and I admire it. Carry on. This is a great job that you're doing. Coming to this subject of the seminar today, let me focus on, I think security has been talked about quite a bit. Admiral Kushresha and then Mr. Shekhar mentioned about two great ideas. The security environment in which India today is and what we need to face. And then there was a key word that Mr. Shekhar said, innovation. Innovation is, I think, the key word here. So I'm going to focus on that and we'll see how we carry on in terms of the opportunities which are available for India's new business. And that is where Dr. Bansal, you come in at the NDIA because you very quickly the sense of innovation in the minds of sorry. All right. Two things, first of all. When we talk about power, we often talk about power in the sense of security, strategy, the military threats. Uh, Secretary Shekhar mentioned about economic security, knowledge security, and so on and so forth. These days, when we talk about power of the country, power is not isolated in several compartments. We talk about comprehensive national power, which brings together both the economic power, no, not both, several components, economic power, military power, knowledge power, innovation power, technology, and everything, because as Russia and Ukraine war has proved, just military power is not enough to assert your will or to win the war. You need everything together. Like, why does USA impose sanctions against Russia? They declare that NATO will not take part in the war because that could lead to a third world war. But they will try and pull Russia down by imposing sanctions because the expectation is that the declining economy will persuade Russia to stop the war. And as you know, the ruble has already gone down by more than 50%. Today it is trading at 200 rubles per dollar. Russia probably very soon, if it continues with the war, will not have enough funds for the equipment and the logistics and the food and everything for the Russian huge troops now in Ukraine. Therefore, economic power is an important part of any security. So it's comprehensive national power, and therefore, if we talk about the business opportunity, we are talking not about the military power, but what actually can be done in terms of keeping the economy and trade safe and grow it further so that that can supplement our military efforts in terms of becoming a real power in the world. So comprehensive national power. And the second thing is that a security environment, how much ever challenging it may be, also presents opportunity. Therefore, when you look at the problems around you, also try and look at the solutions. That is where the innovation comes. I'm going to be very here because we don't have much time. So I'm going to give examples here now. China. China has risen so fast. It's actually a miracle. Nobody could believe. I was in China from 1988 to 91. China was still a third world country at that time, even though the economic reforms had begun in 1978. But I could see, I was in Beijing and I could see the dusty old city. During the 3 years that I was there, China transformed slowly but steadily. Why? Because China made use of what was available to it. China needed technology, China needed markets, etc., etc. When the Western countries, particularly the USA, came to China, China made sure that those goods, even including Coca-Cola, does not flood the Chinese markets. Chinese workers who were working in the special zones, they brought the technology as a kind of, learning on the job and then taking it out to do something for the Chinese market. Chinese technology developed on the basis of the Western companies producing goods in China and not being careful enough to protect the technology. But more than the technology, what China did was use the opportunity. Example, rules of origin. I think everybody who's doing management and trade will know that the rules of origin in terms of the WTO are the biggest factor in terms of either impeding or promoting trade. What did China do? There was a whole lot of issues about the rules of origin. There is a charter in the UK to keep track of the ships which have been purchased or which have been launched on the sea, which have been taken to the demolition yard, and therefore they know exactly how many ships are doing what. They found that there are more ships on the high seas than there ought to be. And why? China was buying the old ships which were designed for the demolition yard, converting them into mobile factories, do the manufacturing and value addition on the high seas, and then take it into the ports to sell the goods. Now, can you imagine how do you defeat the rules of origin? This is what they did. So this is innovation. Innovation is not just in terms of technology, but ideas, development ideas. Another example that I would like to, second thing, whatever may be the war, every country will try to protect its economy. Another example of the recent. After Russian forces came into Ukraine, sanctions were imposed all around and everything. 2 banks in Russia are excluded from the sanctions. You know. Why? Because those 2 banks are the banks used by entire Europe to pay for gas from Russia. The same thing happened in Libya. When the sanctions were imposed in Libya, I forget which year, it was a long time ago when I was in the United Nations, France made sure that the sanctions would not cover oil drilling equipment. Why? Because France was supplying that equipment to Libya. So please remember one thing. Whatever may happen in the world, the money will still rule. And because the money will still rule, the trade and economy will rule. There is no military power without money. And therefore, we need to promote our economy, we need to protect our trade, and provide the money for the military power if India wants to be where it wants to be. $5 trillion economy is basically meant for it. All right. Having said this, coming to what I think the young business, and I will not talk about young business, what young minds can do. What the young mind should do is see where are the opportunities in the current global scenario, global security scenario. The global security scenario raises opportunities for trading in dirty world, armaments. Now, obviously, you can't do the armaments. That's not a big, small industry. But there's still a lot of things in the defense industries, technologies, communication equipment, phones, all kinds of things. Look for the opportunities where you can in the defense industries, which will be required for the military action. Look for the opportunities which are created by the sanctions. When you impose sanctions, there will be always areas which will be excluded, simply because the economy has to be protected. For example, in this current regime of sanctions, IT is not excluded. Communications are not excluded. Look for such areas and see how you can work on those areas to promote growth. When you do that, you will need to basically also look at the needs, do the business model, which can take into account all these things, and see where it can fit like a glove into the sanctions regime. Where can you secure your payments from? Do all that, develop a business model which can create business opportunities for you, profits for you, revenue for you, in accordance with the prevailing situation. I think I've said enough here. You have the ideas, you need to innovate and use the opportunities presented by the current security scenario, because ultimately the money and business will rule. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Ambassador Suresh Goyal. Now I move to Lieutenant General Satish Dua.
Thank you, Chair. I know you all, especially the younger minds, will be thinking, what will the army guy talk about economy? Yeah, sir. Yeah. That's my last thing. But you're not the only one. I thought about it. On the way, I really got an idea. When Mr. Parikar, late Mr. Parikar, got his soul, I worked directly under him with the defense minister. And then he was suddenly here for political compulsions. He had to go away to Goa. And he became chief minister. In one of his return visits to Delhi, we were having an informal discussion with him. And very informally, please don't take serious. He said, now sometimes I think this is too small a budget to be handled. He was talking about the Goa state budget. He said, because he was used to the defense budget. We all know the defense budget of this year. There is 5,25,000 crores. That's the amount of defense budget. You just heard, and I'm not going to repeat some very good points that Suresh Goyal has made. Just heard, said that, that was Arjay who said that India is the second largest exporter of weaponry. And in fact, second largest is also for just a year or two, it was the Saudi Arabia that kept us. But otherwise, for years, and even this year onwards, we are the largest import of weaponry equipment. So why am I saying this? And I know the topic is about how big businesses can fire up the Indian economy, reach that stated goal of 5 trillion economy. Over the last 2-3 years, or last 4 or 5 years, the government policies are now heavily incentivizing how public sector, private sector can enter the defense industry in a big way. For too long, we have been dependent only on public sector. That is why we had to keep relying more on imports because our public sector was not able to deliver the right amount or the right technologies in time. I will not go into details of the schemes. Let me just point out 2 odd things that I wish to mention. This particular defense budget this year is actually going to get operative only after another week, the next month. 68% of defense budget procurement, that is buying weapon and equipment, 68% of it has been set aside for domestic sector. And how much? I told you it's 5,25,000 crores. Not the whole of it, but approximately half of it is going to go in defense. And if 68% set aside for the defense, for the domestic sector, you can do the math yourself. This is the first time it has happened that more than set aside for domestic industry. If that has been done, on the other hand, the government has started using the private sector more and more in the public sector establishments, like the ordnance factories have been corporatized. Now, I won't go into details. All the point that I'm trying to make, my thrust is that there is a lot of scope. All that money that the defense budget goes, let's say half of it, arbitrary figure, has to actually be earned by the domestic sector, including the private sector. Mr. Goyal just brought out, there are innovations to be done. There are so many other facets to defense, not only manufacturing. For the first time, 25% of the defense R&D budget, you have heard of DRDO, R&D budget, 25% of it, the defense R&D budget has been set aside or earmarked for academia, for private sector, for technical establishments, from private sector and not from the government. That's a first. This is in line with DARPA. I'm sure you heard of DARPA in the US. It is an agency that changed the world as per the economist. So, such great strides are being made. There is hope in the defense industry, which the private sector can actually grab. Two years ago, or it was in 2019, you may have seen that the Army Day is on 15th of January. On 15th of January 2019, the Army Day parade, there was a great show of, I think it was 300 or 400 drones You all recall that? It became national headlines. It caught China's imagination. What is India doing with swarm, drone swarm, as it was called? I'm forgetting the name of the company. I knew it till now. It was an MSME, an innovation, Indian company that gave that demonstration. And within 3 months, a 10,000 crore order was placed to acquire drones from there. All I'm trying to say is that there are several schemes we want to find out right now. It is not here to, we are not sitting in the Chamber of Commerce. The idea is to ignite the young minds about the fact that there is a great, huge potential here for the academia, for business interests, and for R&D to be able to contribute. And you all will actually take the country forward. The growth story of India is going to be driven by you all, and I'm addressing the students at the back. So if the defense or defense forces not only provide a secure environment, that is also very essential. If great big businesses are decoupling from China for the reasons that have happened in the last 2 years, and if they are no more decoupled from Russia now, why is India one of the preferred destinations? India is a preferred destination because of this stability that our political system provides, because of the security that our defense forces provide. And as I just brought out to you, there are other aspects to the growth story of India that the defense sector can offer. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Lieutenant General Satish Dua. And I think you have written a book also I was reading on India's brave hearts, the untold stories of the Indian Army. So can you just say something about, I think the young ones, they should be knowing,
Thank you. Well, Chair has just referred to a book that I wrote called India's Brave Hearts a couple of years ago. I made good use of the lockdown when it started. I'm a counter-terrorism guy. I'm a counter-terrorism expert in my service 3 years ago. And so I have written stories of soldiers on the line of control or in combat situations in encounter with terrorists, mostly in Jammu and Kashmir. Because my experience has been mostly in Jammu and Kashmir. So it's not only the stories of bravery, which are there. There are several bravery stories, but it's also about the heartbreaks. It's also about the tough life that soldiers lead, and in combat situations. And it is also about how families cope up, families of soldiers, how they cope up when the husband or sons are in such trying circumstances. So and it's all my personal experience. It's written in first hand, as first hand experience. The book is reasonably well because it has been translated into Hindi also, a book called Bharat Ke Jambaz. So thank you. Thank you very much.
young ones should be knowing, because we just watch all the movies. So the people who have, experienced it, I think that sharing is a different one.
Yeah, just add something. And the young ones should do it. It might interest you to know the first story is about surgical strikes. I was a court martyr in the surgical strike. 2000.
And I think your son is also in army.
He's an MBA right
Okay, so that's good to on, that way. Thanks a lot. I'll request Dr. Kanal Singh to give the exposition on whatever he feels are the challenges and measures required.
Thank you, madam. The topic of today is whether the present security environment in the country. I will state two statements. One was given by Narayan 3 years ago. He said India has not produced even a single innovation which has become household world over. We are a big country. And we are not doing the innovation, not able to. Of course, in the recent past, government of India has been trying its best. helping the universities to set up innovation centers, to set up startup centers. And we hope that innovations will be the part of our life in our country. Last week, I was sitting with a businessman. It was a meeting with a businessman. I was basically outsider in that. They were all worried about the security scenario. What is the security scenario of their company? We have talked of till now the physical security. We have talked of the cyber security. But what is the security they were talking? It could be the political security. In the West Bengal, an industrialist set up a business. The government changed, political government changed, and he had to wind up from there. Can we have at the national level that such things not happen? And that is what political security could be. There is a question of financial security. And why I'm talking of financial security is the dispute resolution mechanism. A lot of FDI comes in our country. The business, when it is formed, they make agreements. And somebody, if violates the agreement, you have to go to the court for the litigation. If you see in our country, civil dispute resolution mechanism is very, very slow. It takes 10 years, it takes 20 years, it takes 30 years. The foreign businessmen are afraid of our litigation system. Even Indian businessmen are afraid of it. Can we improve our judicial system? Government is finding the alternative. There is an alternative dispute resolution mechanism, arbitration, mediation, as well as negotiation. But they are not moving very fast because even if somebody is going to the arbitration, the people can go to the court and can get it restored. I'll give you an example. Recently, Amazon and Future get a dispute resolution mechanism, international arbitration, they are there. But the Future has been able to get that restored because of the court's intervention. And what is the impact on that? You make an agreement, you start a business, somebody cheats you, you go to the court, you go to the police, you don't get it. That is another problem people face. That is what where government judicial intervention in the form of improvement in the system. And we import lot of equipment from the foreign. We do not know in those equipments whether there is a backdoor. And that's the reason why India is not importing now many of the electronic items. Now, if we talk of the innovation side itself, you take example of Israel. For the interception mechanism, for the hacking mechanism, there is no comparison to Israel. That is a small country. We are the best computer scientists, but we are not able to compete with them in the field of interception. Reason being, perhaps we are not providing the security at the But when you take, for example, it is an intellectual property rights. So for intellectual property rights is the law. But again, you have to go to the court if there is a dispute. Suppose you create a new item and somebody copies it. Copyright act becomes to that. How to implement it? Police case. I have seen people who say that I have patent of this particular item, but somebody else is producing. and he runs post to pillar to stop them. So even innovation rights are not yet protected. And we have to think about that. We have to promote innovation in our country. Then we see the world over. The startups success rate is only 10%. 90% is startup statistically fail world over. Now our young boys and girls, if they start doing new things, they have a startup. Government has to take care of those 90% failures. What happens today is you take loan from the bank. If the business fails, there's no mechanism to establish, to understand whether it is business failure or whether it is fraud. Bank will get a case registered, and the person, innocent person, whose business has failed, genuinely can become victim of this state. The government has to also take care of how these 90% of the people with failure, they will be protected. And that is very, very important. Then the people are afraid of our investigating agents. What happens in our scenario? A person comes, he puts on social media that this particular industry is doing wrong. Whether he is doing or wrong things or not, that is immaterial. His stock comes down, and some of the agencies start investigating or inquiring into that. That news comes. So before anything happens, the big business can be found by the people for cheats. I know about a case where one advocate approached an industry saying that I have your records, you give me so much amount of money. The industry refused to give. Immediately, there was a press conference by that particular advocate. The case was also moved in the High Court of Delhi. Of course, that industry was able to get the case registered. This advocate was caught, and when his house was searched, 51 industries documents were available. And he had already taken money, huge money of crores from some of the industry. So this we have to think of. The social media and internet can also play havoc, and that security available that anybody makes allegations and it is put all over without even verifying. So I'll stop at that because there's much to talk, but time limitations are there. Thank you, madam. Thank you so much.
I think I could for all measures to be safe. Some things can be cured, some things cannot, but really pointed out very well. Now I'll request Mr. Khurana give his exposition.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What I would say is disruptive as a security scenario. There is a lot of chance available for everyone. I will give you one big and small both example that US economy has been growing within 1 and 2% of the. Because of COVID-19, now the economy is growing at a rate of 7%, which has happened for 30 to 40 years. So how it has happened, I just want to share with you. Because of the steady growth of 2%, 1.5% to 2%, there has been a continuous blue collar jobs, white collar jobs, and all the manufacturing was being shifted to China. Only value addition that
of the Silicon Valley was being capitalized. But this mindset changed because of the COVID-19 situation that people were sitting inside. And they started again the small industry. There was no small industry left in the US. Again, the small industry and the programs you must have seen where the entrepreneurs are being out in India, also where profit are being encouraged, are being handheld. That proposition of hand holding, what the Karnal Singh has said in 90% because there is no hand. He has clearly said by the government. I would disagree. Not by the government, by the private people with the experience. I've done it in a company which was going bankrupt. The hand holding by some experienced person, experienced company. That's helping. So that hand holding. Another second thing, why America and other things are people are doing very good. Why Elon Musk? Why Virgin Atlantic? They were not that big when they were born. They were nowhere. We always talk about other industries, big industries. They were zero. Elon Musk was zero when he was born. Why he has grown? Because of disruptive thinking he could do. What I would ask all of you to make an endeavor, a dream of disruptive technology, disruptive thinking. Thing which can't happen, but you make it. If you don't do that, you will fall in a routine and you might be case of one in it. Unless you start thinking disruptive technology. Security environment, we're thinking, we're identifying what are the gaps are there, what are the mistakes are there. No, I have to see why, how to, whatever is there, how to overcome. So iPhone was one of the best secured phones, but it was also because then they accepted the mistake we never thought of. It's not that the possibility was not there. They knew about the possibility, but they never went beyond. And the hacker went beyond. In our mentality, in our cultural values of India, we don't. That's why we are not so good at security, but the security, the breed of security, we don't create that breed security system. Yeah. Because culturally we are not. We are not an hacker. Now we have to become. To make it safe, it's not that you have to become a hacker to make it safe. Whatever the products we are giving, that becomes more and more safe. I'll give you one example close to me of my son is very young. He is a project in engineering automation system on the banking studies, automatic, His team designs the system and he is a license test driver. What he has told me, Papa, my job is to build my system to cover those gaps which those people cannot see. And he does it and tells me, hi Papa, I get test. It's not that really is doing the test 1 in 4. That ability to build your own system will enhance the value addition, value of Elon Musk now he has got rockets. You must have read in the newspaper those rockets. But that was not a big news. If Indian rocket of ISRO fails, it will be a big news on the front page. That's the learning. What he said, he gave the answer. This is my learning. It has failed, it is good for me, not bad. There is no setback. There is setback to the program. Oh, system has now your system is more robust. Failure should help you. Failure should not be moralized. Failure is a part of the learning curve. No failure has happened, that means you are ready. So I would encourage you to, on one main point, start. Then you can, the Poland and when these countries came out of the Soviet Union, they were the poorest countries in the world. Today they are not. Because technologically they are much advanced. Now India can do one thing which I have dreamed is on the medical equipment of that man, which are now being dominated by Germany. All medical equipment are being dominated by Germany. It is kind of by the chip. So the thinking they have developed for the software and now it should have back only the government of India start thinking of the so that we have. That has been my dream by last year when Indian software are there. Chip manufacturing, yeah, has been a problem with India because of the environment. We don't have conducive environment, just free environment. Just that we just so there's so many vast scopes are there. Failures should not discourage you. Start looking at the disruptive technology, disruptive thinking on any field, any sphere, not only technology. But with कुछ भी नया system. Take something. It will help you. India ने एक बनाया सबसे अच्छा smokeless system. Which world has not produced because Indian government made it. अब तो दुनिया में देखते रहता है. ढूंढते रहे वहां से import करने के ढूंढते रहे. That smokeless chula has that woman in not. Think of something. There are vast scope. कुछ उल्टे हो गए टांग के उल्टे टांग के. Thank you.
Sir के बल पे. I will request Dr. Bansal to give the exposition.
Ma'am, because the time is running out and I would like to leave some time for the questions and answers. I'll just take two minutes only. Couple of things that were mentioned was that hybrid learning kind of a thing was mentioned. So I just want to tell that we work academia has to innovate in a very big way every day. And the students have to be basically asking for that. Because if we stick to what was being done yesterday, every minute the world is changing, every minute the expectations of recruiters are changing. So innovation has to happen fastest at the campuses. That's one. And that's one reason when we got into hybrid mode of teaching is that earlier you take the rest of the big names into the education system. MBHR means MBHR and MBA marketing means MBA marketing. So what we did over the years is we have clubbed most of the essential learning under all the subjects and they are being given to everyone. They are being given to all the MBA specialization students so that they do not find that deficiency of skill that only covering. Our ultimate job is to groom you as the CEOs of the company who knows everything, rather than just saying I know the HR field or marketing field or the finance field. In that direction, our difficulty also came of the very new subject that's called company-based research. We felt that a doctor knows every part of the body before they become MDs in, say, intestines or gastro or eyes or ears. But an MBA doesn't know the company, how to read a company from 360 degrees angle. So that was introduced here. Then also what various new things, because our job is to be innovating, which I say, having been part of the industry in a very big way, getting industry support in a very big way. And that's one reason of working with the GCTC also, that we'll get new direction. We'll see what more is required to be given to the students. And whatever we do, let me tell you, that's why our colleagues from AICT are sitting here. Whatever we do, we inform the AICT. And the AICT is very progressive. They take it to so many institutions across the country. We feel that whatever initiative we have taken, that is going to institutions across the country. And that is what is leading to a big change. We were, in fact, the first one we have taken up, we have tied up with the Australian Institute of Risk Management, because we felt, and we are the only partners they have chosen in this part of the world, because we felt that risk management, after all the things that are happening, is become the most important field which every engineer, every graduate, or I would say every individual should know. So we are in the process also trying to give certificates to our students as disaster management officer, okay, as a sustainability officer, because every organization is essentially going to need them in the coming days. You cannot restrict to your simple MBA. Same thing with yeah, you do something, you do something with the GCTC. That was the purpose, because education is changing very slow. It has to change very fast. And fortunately, the current chairman of the UGC and the current chairman of the AICT are very progressive. And that is what gives us a very big hope. Whatever we have done, whatever I must say, whatever we have done, we have never gone to the AICT for approval. Earlier, everything was approved by them. And whenever I talk to the chairman of AICT, he says, why do you need my approval? If you feel good, please do it. So that has led to such a big change. And I mean, I shouldn't repeatedly say, because a lot of my colleagues from the academia sitting here, not being from the academia, gave me that help and support. Okay. Because otherwise the academia gets caught up and tied up into their old books and old regimes and old curriculums. Okay. So, but difficulty at NDM is not the academia that you're looking for other institutions. Faculty at the academia is thinking in the same lines as I think. They're innovating and they're very progressive. They're not caught into the old school of academics. So there's a couple of things that for the students, I must tell you, we are the only ones last 3 years back, SOCHM, one of the biggest trade and industry chambers, fixed us as their incubation center of the country. We're the only incubation center of the country by any business chamber of the country. So we are trying to promote it a big way. And a new thinking that we did, Dr. Bansal sitting from Kana, Bansal sitting from AICT, would see कि सर अच्छा आपने ये भी कर दिया हमें तो बताया नहीं. So what we did was to encourage entrepreneurship. Then we started this program, students are not coming up very much. Then last year, I said, okay, whosoever does this program, I will release them from other credits. Okay, you can do 32 hours, 62 hours, 96 hours onto entrepreneurship. You can even do a summer internship with your own projects or to own startups. And I will give you all the credits that you go and do when you work with the industry. So we have been trying to put all those things into place, but we need your ideas, we need your help. And I always challenge the students to come out with more and more questions and more ideas. Yes, GCTC is going to help and support us very big way. I'll not take more time. Thank you so very much for being here. And maybe along with this, so that I can short the time later, I'll give my vote of thanks also right now before we go to the Q&A. So that will save a lot of time. So thank you so very much. That again you may call it innovation or jumping the queue, you may call it anything. Okay. So I'll tell you how the academia was caught. Academia was caught in a very bad way. 3 years back, a team from, I shouldn't announce, very senior people from some universities came here for inspection. One of the papers which they saw the faculty had written, which was printed in the defense journals, that was on the border security of the Northeast. And can you believe the academic closed mindset at that time? Those people said, who has told you to write this paper? We are a management institute. You need to be researching only onto the management aspect, and we do not give you credit for all that. Okay, so this is the mindset. I told my faculty that you carry on doing it. We don't care for the government approval, the accreditation. We do not care for the government credit. You are doing a great job. Please keep on doing it. So I only want to now thank the GCTC in a very big way. Thank Ambassador Suresh. He has been a part of us. He has been distinguished adjunct and visiting faculty with us for a long time. And yes, he has been younger. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sorry to interrupt. The chair of chairman of LTIM. I should have mentioned when I spoke that I actually am the bridge between GCTC and NDM. And
Yeah.
I hope I will be strong.
Yeah, yeah. And I coming back when China was its almost first posting, and I remember that my family went there, and my mother still remembered till our last day that when we went there, Suresh came and touched my feet and bathed me. So we can't forget those things. And the General Dua has been a big support. We know Farhana Saab, we know everybody in a very big way. Thank you so very much. Thank you so much, Singh ji. And I'm extremely grateful to them for all the support and all the people sitting here from the GCTC Advisory Council, the Executive Council, especially the patron. And Aditya, Deeraj, Rustai, thank you very, very much. I will keep on speaking what I feel right. Okay. So it is my job being senior to you to keep pulling you and pushing you so that you give more energy, more chance, and more support to our students. So thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Can we have a question answers from the audience?
Good afternoon, everyone. So my question to you, sir, Satish Dua, sir. Yeah. So I want to ask that I heard news once that yeah. Yeah. So the India arms importer, India is the biggest arms importer. Biggest arms importer, and its demand fell by 33% in 2011 to 2016. But still, also, is the second largest importer. So, can India have the capability to manufacture and to export as well?
You're right. For the time was short, I'm trying to rush through it. What you said is the exact thought process that I was trying to provoke. Saying that we are the biggest arms. हमें उतनी arms की जरूरत तो है. Whether we buy it from outside or we produce it ourselves. For the last 5 odd years, approximately, government has put in motion several schemes that we can produce it ourselves. If our public sector is not matching up, the private sector is being pushed into it, and several other schemes. So the idea is that we will be able to not only produce, you mentioned something very nice, that we will be able to export. Actually, if we start, let's say, I said this sentence in BPIO once, if India starts manufacturing small arms ammunition, which is not rocket science, small arms rifle, not missiles. So if India starts manufacturing ammunition, the world will stop manufacturing ammunition because we will export it to the world with our technology and our company. So, very good.
Thank you, sir.
The next question.
Sir, as you said that India should make some ammunition more. So as we are seeing that India is supplying Bravos to the Philippines also. But in a recent activity, we can see that there is a misfiring incident which is landed to the Pakistan. So is that in fact to become a global leader in this field?
At the level of national and international levels, what has happened last week is an aberration. It should not have happened. I have myself gone on several television shows to talk about it. It should not have happened. The correct word used by the government. And even Pakistan as a nation has responded very maturely. They have not. We are both nuclear countries. So your question is correct, your doubt is correct. But if this starts, okay, let me put it this way. If this starts happening, let's say once in a month or twice in a year, then there are questions, question mark arises. One aberration. We are exporting to Philippines this particular weapon itself, and we will continue to do that. And I don't think this should cloud our judgment.
Other way around, what would have been the consequence?
Well, if other way around, we would say Pakistan had tried something, we would have had the very same rational response. Please remember
About the people, I'm saying.
people. I'll ask you a question, Aditya. This is for the larger audience. When Sachin Tendulkar is playing for the speaker, Virat Kohli or some contemporary names, if they are playing, and when the public starts saying six, वो सिक्सर मारता है या बॉल के हिसाब से प्ले करता है तो बॉल के हिसाब से लेकर नहीं तो कैरियर 5,000 people. Yesterday, last night, I was talking on NDTV on this last night, and everyone started saying the other four families at home started saying that no, when something inquiries there after the public should know and we should. I said, sorry, inquiry will be done by the defense forces. This is a very confidential secret. What went wrong? How are we correcting it? Those things are not to be put out in public domain. So the point is, public, yes, public is concerned, and the militaries have to do what they do.
So the questions in that panel, you spoke about using MSME, how was 2019, they used the drone. So when we're using MSME in the defense space, in the defense research, are we open to private sectors as well coming in? Are we open to just vocal for local, or are we looking at international players as well?
We are actually looking at both, because vocal for local is fine, but there is a technology gap that we have. So there is a bridge called scheme called strategic partnership. But I was in service when we drafted it by us to it. So in strategic partnership, an Indian enterprise is allowed to partner with a foreign OEM and then bring in technologies there. So we will get two things. We will also get investment from the side. Let's say you start a new project and you partner with Boeing. So Boeing will come and set up shop over here. So they will obviously invest as well as they will bring in technology.
And I have one more question. Actually, we spoke on the panel about how China is a major player in the Southeast Asia, Southeast Asia, and we need to be careful of them. Like how they're spreading in Taiwan and how they're spreading their borders across Asia. Shouldn't security laws apply to them as well in the international borders, or in the international world?
That question should actually go to the diplomatic sphere. Okay with you.
Thank you very much for putting me in a suit here. Well,
Chinese
well, you're absolutely right. Every country in the world has to live in accordance with the international laws, and the same international law, in this particular case, the law of the sea, does apply to China equally. Now we come to a bit of a reality. And the real world, the people who have the capacity to get away with breaking the laws, if it suits them, they will do. All right?
Any other questions?
I think I don't know, they'll be there for the lunch also. They can interact with the analysts. Huh?
Sir, I have a question.
No, but not about the ask a question in this.
This is regarding my question is to the esteemed panel. You all spoke about very well about innovation, but as I am working in the defense transport technology and worked in tank manufacturing, we have experienced that the technology adoption is not there, despite you get the technology adoption. So whatever the innovation is being done in India all over across the country, very superficially touched, we get a solution, market it, get some money or dollars, and we are happy about it. But the depth of that innovation is not happening. So what is to be done? Because if you see the S-400 missile system, I know the background I share with you separately. Well, I've been with the channel yesterday, and then why we purchase S-400 and why couldn't we make it? Because we lack the concept of the comprehensive system design, integrating so many things. We manufacture, like you may indigenize everything of an invested in India, but then after 100 industries are making parts, what is the next step? How will you put a new car together with them? So that is where my whole the program, I would say, of indigenization or whatever it is, or innovation, is actually not getting the result. So here I would ask the youngsters to take up. I'm also heading an AI company. So innovation in algorithm, thinking a little differently, certainly, but then youngsters may not have the valid role to get the data. So some support system must be there to get the data. that is not happening, and that's why we import Bimari will never end. It will never end. But this is for the entire esteem panel.
No, he'll be because
Yeah, he should take lead because he is the most effective person. And for us, he also engineer to do it. I have some old connection with Anna. I will share with you.
No, I agree with the chair. Zero nahi hai
हाँ.
technology job. There are we always tend to limit what we don't have, and sometimes don't appreciate what we have. Now the license production of equipment, all that is being done by HCL. So there we have a blocks in technology, but you are right. We have not been able to convert it to innovations to improve on the no product improvement. For example, everyone talks about robots. So everyone knows the younger generation may not know this because they were not born there. That time the Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi before scandal this that what one doesn't know, and I'm going to surprise you all, with before we also brought transfer of technology. In this scandal, in that whole thing that happened in corruption and all and political issues, we never made a single before. We actually never made it. And today we are reinventing the beat. Of course, not two different perfect different. So the point I'm trying, what you're saying is right. What has been done now to address what you will know it and saying for others is that several schemes like IDEX and all. The point is, pardon my saying, I'm sticking my neck out to say, as long as public, it does not remain only for public sector. Transfer of technology should go to private sector, to innovators, to MSMEs, to young minds like you. I think then only we can move.
Just one. Hello. Main setback was we didn't have that boring technology. Make a precise board. Whatever ammunition we will put in our board, not with this. Now we got that technology. No, just 1 minute. Let me complete.
Sorry.
That integration. What you talk about integration. That's what example I gave you. और तुम भी बना रहे हैं software भी बना रहे हैं their software is all put in car in one chip बनाते हैं इधर अपने लैब में सब बड़े कंप्यूटर में बन रहा है that has to be compressed and put in one chip ये पे लगता है वो उसका वही काम है कि वो इंटीग्रेशन को फेल करने if we start learning that integration सब सीखना शुरू कर देंगे हम एक चीज बना के आधी चीज बना के खुश होना एक स्टार्ट ब्लॉकिंग के लिए हमने ये कर लिया वो चीज में नहीं इंटीग्रेशन में रिक्वायर्ड पर इंटीग्रेशन मेक द सिस्टम फेल इज रिक्वायर्ड जहाँ का मिक्का है मैंने पार्टी को बहुत सारे करा एक में हम क्यों फेल हुए टेक्नोलॉजी में इंडिया ने कभी फर्स्ट जनरेशन नहीं बनाया अपने अपना डिजाइन किया बनाया और की बात हम लॉन्ग बैक गिवन में ये सबने सारे काम फर्स्ट जनरेशन का भी बना के जब कोड खराब करेंगे सेकंड बनाएंगे तब हमें सीधा छलांग मारने की कोशिश कर रहे थे आजकल तो करने के लिए फेल हो गए हमारे रीजन यही है कि हम जंप भी ना
Very briefly, I just want to say something here. One, of course, we try and jump 4 steps ahead. Tejas is a good example of that. We try to go on a second generation fighter without even making a first generation fighter. But beyond that, we often don't dare to create or innovate. Give an example of automobile sector. We have done lots and lots of system integration designs. Tata is a good example of what we have done a system integration, so we can do it. It's not that we do not dare to do it. I think we need artificial intelligence. They are doing some excellent work. I know that personally. Therefore, I don't think it's quite right to say that we are poor in the system integration. Sometimes we jump, or sometimes we choose the wrong.
There is because you were raising question.
One second.
Very easy of data.
One second. So may I request Dr. Deep, my friend,
and the students, all of them were waiting for the questions. Please join us for lunch, okay, on the library floor, and we'll take the discussion forward because we have classes now, and I do not want that your classes get delayed. We will take your time and we will be discussing it over there. So to be questions there, to the students had some questions, the student 3-4 times I saw their hand. So please come and be with us at library floor. Best wishes.
Thank you so much. I would like to thank all our panelists for sharing their knowledge with all of us. With this, we come to the end of our panel discussion. Before we finally wind up and break for lunch, let's have a group photograph. I would request certain students to come close to the stage for a group photograph with our panelists. I would request all our esteemed panelists and other guests that we have from GSTC to kindly come up for the group photograph.